All right, let me talk to you a little bit about what's happening. And Stu, you have an analytical mind. I don't. I don't think like you. You think numbers. Mm-hmm. See if you can figure this out.
Okay.
The IRS migration data released last week shows that California lost more residents than any other state. Mm-hmm. Net loss of nearly 332,000 people and more than $29 billion in income.
Okay.
The state with the second largest population loss is New York, which saw a loss of 262,000 residents and $24.5 billion in income. Mm-hmm. What time will the train pull into the station? I can't figure this out. Illinois is the other, with a loss of 105,000 people.
Weird.
And $10.8 billion. Okay.
And what's the time period? Does it give you the time period on this? 2019 through COVID type of number?
I think it's 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, 2021.
Okay. That sounds like certainly people reacting to the restrictions is a good, I would guess, a good chunk of that.
Yeah, sure. Massachusetts, for example, had a net loss of 44,000 people, $4.3 billion in income. Louisiana lost 28,500 and $861 million in income. Mm-hmm. New Jersey, which lost fewer people, 26,000, lost a total of $4.87. No, $3.8 billion less in income. So it seems as though the high tax, in-your-face states are not appealing to those people who have the ability to get away from them.
Yeah, and I would add on to that the states that decided to control every aspect of your life during the pandemic as well, right? Mm-hmm. So if you, let's say, for example, try to shut down businesses, control people's movement, force them to wear masks and take medication they may or may not want to have taken, and also try to make them pay exorbitant prices for that privilege, maybe those people aren't going to stay anymore. It's a crazy idea.
Now, here's another crazy idea. In California, I mean, they're mixing up some powerful medicine, to help their state. Californians, the state Democratic lawmakers have introduced a bill that would impose a wealth tax. Okay? Now listen to this. A wealth tax on the wealthiest residents, including for several years after you move from the state.
I'm sorry, now you get a wealth tax that you pay to California, even though you don't live in California.
Don't live in California. If you lived in California and moved away, doesn't matter. They're still going to tax you for several years. I don't even know legally how you can even do that.
I don't think they could. And also, a wealth tax is completely unconstitutional federally. Whether they could get away with it at a state level, I'm not sure. But you're not allowed to do that federally, which is, of course, something that Elizabeth Warren still, over and over and over again props up there as some possibility to solve all of our problems.
Now, here is the big winner. Of course, say it with me, North Dakota. No. Florida, 255,834 residents, $39.19 billion coming into the state. Texas, number 2, 174,866 with $10.9 billion. North Carolina, 76,000 and almost $5 billion. South Carolina, just over $4 billion. And the same with Tennessee, $4.15 billion.
It's, legitimately incredible. It was all blue states except one that people were moving out of, and all red states that they were moving into. But what could be the pattern here? I don't know. What could it be? And by the way, I think Louisiana was the one state that people were moving out of. It was also one of the hardest hit states because of COVID. Yeah, it really did have a rough.
Louisiana always has a rough go of it, I think.
Especially places like New Orleans, which you wouldn't necessarily associate with red state policies. That's really where they got hammered by that.
Any place that you have to say, and this goes for parts of Florida, any place that you have to say, kids, don't reach into the bushes, is a problem. Okay? I mean, where's Johnny? I don't know. I just saw him reaching into the bush.
Oh, okay. We've lost Johnny.
A giant mouth opened up and ate him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a problem.
That can happen at any time.
Yeah, I associate that more with Louisiana. It's maybe actually, unfairly.
Well, no, it's on the Louisiana state flag. There's a child being eaten by something in a bush. People don't realize that. It's not exactly the best commercial for the tourism department.
I don't know if I would have that on my state flag. But
look, this happens all the time. Let's show people what's going on.
Yeah, so there's something else here. Jeffrey Epstein, his little black book. Now, may I ask, if this wasn't about the world's most powerful people, it was about you and me going to see, teenage slaves for sex.
It'd be frowned upon, I think.
I think it would be frowned upon,
yeah.
And I think we'd all be exposed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the press would lead the way.
I mean, they came after the guy who did Subway commercials, right?
Yeah.
Like they're gonna. If it was like a conservative of any prominence, they would make sure you knew about it.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein met with the Obama White House counsel, the Rothschilds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if all of them, but probably the spooky,
They're like the Koch brothers. You can't meet with just one of them.
Yeah, you gotta
it's
have
just always both of them.
And there's only two?
No, only one now.
That's what
the other one died.
You believe.
Yeah, right.
He died.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and then
just like Jeffrey Epstein,
our CIA director.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to take you down just for a second, okay? I know you had a restful week. I know you were like, hey, I'm good. And I didn't even watch Chuck Todd. And I would say to you, no one watches Chuck Todd. I think we're getting to the place where we can just get a transcript from a bot. And even the bot is saying, why do I have to watch Chuck Todd? I mean, I'm not human, but this is cruel. Anyway, Chuck Todd, he had Vivek Ramaswamy on. And Chuck was saying, well, the FBI, you want to abolish the FBI, and you want to replace it with a new FBI. Well, I don't know about replacing it with a new FBI, but yeah, abolishing the FBI. Who does this not sound good to at this point? Besides the Biden
always
family.
Used to love it.
What?
The left used to always love it.
Yeah.
They were the ones pitching it all the time.
Right. So he goes on and says, well, the problem is there's people in there that have worked there for decades. And so what I say is if the U.S. president and I can't work for the federal government for more than 8 years, which I think is a good thing, then none of the bureaucrats reporting to the president should either. Okay, well, that was crazy. That went over his head. All right. Now, let me take you back to Epstein for a second, because I think it illustrates his point really well. We'll do that in 60 seconds. Okay, so in the calendar, in the little black book of Jeffrey Epstein, it was made available last week. A new player in the saga was revealed, and it is the CIA director, William Burns. Now, Burns, his last job in government before taking the helm of the CIA was Deputy Secretary of State from 2011 to 2014. He worked for Hillary Clinton. Now, the CIA spokesperson was asked, hey, what's the deal with him in Epstein's little black book? And this is what the CIA spokesperson said. Well, I'll tell you, but I'd have to kill you. No, they said, Mr. Burns met with Epstein about a decade ago. Listen to that. He met with him, but it was a decade ago. Well, if they were talking about young girls and having sex, I don't care how long ago it was. But he met with him about a decade ago as he was preparing to leave government service. The director did not know anything about him other than that he was introduced as an expert in the financial services sector and offered general advice on the transition to the private sector. So apparently, Epstein was a trusted career counselor. In reality, Burns met with Epstein at least once in Washington, D.C., shortly before he left the State Department, and then 2 other times in New York City at his penthouse where Bill Gates would hang out. All of this reported in the Wall Street Journal. Now, does anyone have a hard time believing the framing here? That somebody like Burns at his level took a random meeting and didn't really know anything about him, and then took 2 other random meetings with the guy at his house? Really? Because that doesn't... One random meeting, maybe. But I will tell you, just to get on... I'm not somebody that was, at Secretary of State level. I'm just an alcoholic DJ. Getting someone on my schedule is really difficult. Just having some random guy who I'm going to meet, it doesn't happen very often on my schedule. Going 3 times randomly to somebody I don't really know much about, it never happens. It never happens. And I'm thinking, if you're going to be the head of the CIA, if you're doing that and the 3rd time you still don't know who this guy is, you shouldn't be the head of the CIA.
Do they check backgrounds for these people at all? When you're...
I know my team does.
Incredible. But I'm saying, when you're the head of the CIA, does anyone know your background?
Right. So now, you fast forward, Joe Biden's looking for somebody to head the CIA. We're about to enter a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine. Bill Burns. He's the guy. We'll put him in. The guy who didn't know who Jeffrey Epstein was for 3 solid meetings. Wow, I don't. This is what Vivek is talking about. These career guys, you got to get out. Get them out of there. It's just a nest of bad things.
It hits a point where you just think there's just too much corruption to try to fix it, right? Because you can have an organization that has corruption in it and fix it and come back around, but it just seems like there's too much here to really...
No, it is. Have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in? That's the only thing we haven't tried. We've tried everything else. Unplug it and plug it back in. Everything needs to be shut down and rebooted. Back to original factory settings. That's the key. We've got all this bad programming that has been piling up and is making the system run like it was never designed to, and it's all breaking down. Restore back to original factory settings. But I love the press. They think, well, you just want to get rid of all the police in the FBI. Well, if the entire thing is corrupt, and maybe there's some good guys out there, I think at the local level, there probably are good guys. I think it's mainly in Washington. But yeah, I think we're going to start the hiring process all over again because we have to. Why is that so insane?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think some people here get rid of the FBI or the CIA and think, well, wait a minute, they do a lot of work that is important. And while, yes, I know they're corrupt, going after, high-level criminals, violent gangs, terrorists, all these things still need to be done. They just don't need to be done with this exact organization in the same way.
The FBI used to be the aid for the states, but now they're not. They used to be. The FBI would say, there's interstate crime going on. And the states would be like, can you nail these guys, please? Because now it's out of my state in another state.
Right.
So the FBI would do that, but they would assist the states. And when they were going to arrest somebody, it wasn't the FBI that got Bonnie and Clyde here in Texas. It was the Rangers. Okay? It was the Texas Rangers. If they were going to get somebody, they would advise. They might even be there. But it was the state that did that. Now they can roll in anywhere they want. They don't even have to call the state. They don't have to call. No, we never had a national police force. And that's how they're being used now. It can't happen. Can't happen. And if it means we have to be without the FBI for, I don't know, how long does it take to reboot? It's a scary couple of minutes, I guess. When it's rebooting, you're like, okay, hurry up. But is it any different than what Windows does to you probably once a month, where you're like, no. Oh, now it's got to reset.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to have a plan to make sure the operations of the country that are important.
Correct.
Not investigating the president over, not the stuff that they've been doing lately, but I mean, the things that actually are important need to be potentially moved to other areas and people reassigned. But a whole reimagining of this needs to occur. I think that's the bottom line.
I don't think reimagining. Just
you don't think that there's any valid work done by the CIA and the FBI that's crucial to the country's security?
Oh no, I do. I mean, I don't need to reimagine it. I need to clean the corruption out.
Yeah, I think the structure needs to be reimagined completely. I don't think the way it's structured now. I think you're going to get this problem again.
It is because it has way too much power.
Yeah.
It has way too much power and no real oversight. That's the problem. So it's not really, in my view, it wasn't a reimagining. It's more of how does the Constitution say these things work?
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a reimagining from where we are now.
Okay, you're right.